Now we're going to put in the battery floor, so make sure you're working on the bottom of the wing. Okay, so working on the bottom of the wing, there's a piece of Coroplast in your kit, probably a little bit oversized. Depending on how big you make your battery bay, which should be about the same as this one. I cut this piece 3 inches long by 1 3/4 inches wide. And just kind of set it in there and center it up. And take you a pencil and draw you a line around, like I've already done this one here. So draw it around, and then take your knife and score your line all the way around. Now, when that line is scored, now just like you did the spars, come back and run your blade that 1/4 inch deep, and then go back and cut these slots 1/4 inch deep. Okay. We're going to go up to the front of the spar, and then all you have to do, and again this is where you need a sharp knife, is go in about that 1/4 inch. And then just cut the ridge out of it. You kind of eyeball it, and just but anyway, cut that out and make that sure that that is a nice, good cutout. With the battery floor glued in, it should be glued in flush with CA. Next step, we're going to cover it with some drywall tape. And you're going to need to got this from the Home Depot, just self-stick drywall tape. That will be a new roll of it. You'll use this a lot, so you should get some. Back to this drywall tape now that I got the thing unraveled a little bit. We're just going to take a couple pieces, and this is self-stick, and just cut it slightly oversized. And we're going to cover this with this self-stick drywall tape and CA. This does two things. It gives the laminate something to stick on. It also just provides protection on the bottom of the battery, which of course is where you're always landing at. Kind of protects that. Plus it gives a little bit of base for the camera up there as well. So I need a couple pieces in this one here. Back piece there, the front piece, and we'll trim it. Fits on like that. There we go. And then this is self-stick stuff, so it should stay stick down. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put it on with CA, thick CA. This is where it's a good idea to keep one of the old blades that's gotten dull, fiber tape. Okay, put this on. Like I say, it helps to have an old, say one of the old knife blades you've taken out that's gotten dull. We've got our fiber tape in place. We're on the bottom, obviously. And we're just going to start here at the corner right here. Like that. It doesn't take as much as the CA as you might think it does. When you start spreading it out, it takes very little. So we're going to take the corner. Next corner. There you go. Once you've got the edges and the corners all tacked in place, now just pretty much just fill in with the CA. And just use the knife blade to squeeze it out. Attach the elevons with using the goop method. That's what I like. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the elevon in there. It helps to put the wing back into the saddle because it'll help hold that elevon in there straight. If you have any pencil marks left over there, a little bit of rubbing alcohol and some paper towels and a little bit of work there. We'll remove that. So anyway, we're just going to set the elevon in there, and just a slight gap over here, which is basically the width of the blade. So it'll work just fine. And I'm just going to secure this end in with a pin. Okay, I want this to be flush right here. Now we're just going to take some masking tape, and we're going to go over here. We're going to put these here. What we're going to do is we're going to put a hinge here, hinge in the middle, and a hinge over here. A small hinge on the outside. We'll put these vertical pieces on first. We're going to go way in over here because we want this hinge to be in close to the inboard edge. There we go. The middle piece, we're going to make the middle one just a little bit longer. Might do, just so you don't confuse where your goop goes, is just fill in this spot there, and fill in the spot there. Notice we got the vertical pieces in there. We want this flush. Put some horizontal pieces. About 1/4 of an inch off the hinge line. Off the hinge line. Okay. There we go. We get that nice and flush. We get that pinned in. Got that pulled up. We're going to put a goop hinge here, and a goop hinge right there. It's real simple. We're just going to need some paper towels, somewhat clean and clear credit card. This is really a simple task. Now just take some goop and put some in there. Put some in there. You want to make sure to put a little too much because you're going to squeegee most of it back off. In fact, you're going to squeegee almost all of it back off. There we go. We got some globs in there. You got to kind of work kind of quick because this stuff starts coagulating pretty quick. We'll spread it in there. Spread it in there. Okay, and now we'll take it off. Just take this thing. What happens is the top and bottom pieces of tape act like the spacer that it needs for the glue. And again, you want to take most all of it back off. There we go. Take almost all of it. And that's about all the working time you're going to get before it starts coagulating. So just be a really fine film right in there. Now we're going to give that about 3 or 4 minutes to set up, and we'll pull the tape off. So now, after about 5 minutes, what I did was I went ahead and taped up the other side and gooped up the other side. Then we're going to remove this tape. You remove this tape after about 5 minutes or so because you don't want the glue to harden so you can get the tape of it off. What we're going to do is we're going to just gently take some of this tape off. We're going to start with these horizontal pieces. You will pull away from the tape. Just kind of be careful. You can see how it's already begun to stick quite a bit. This goop sets up pretty fast. Okay. So now what we do is we're going to take these pieces off like this, and we're going to replace them with another piece of tape away from the glue. Okay, just so it hit the glue. What you might do is stretch the tape a little bit, put it on there. That'll help pull it together. And using a wing saddle, put it in the wing saddle and tape it down on there. That'll keep things kind of flush. Not to mention hold it in place. You can take those pieces off there. Tape right there. Now we simply got to do is just let that sit up and dry. See how I've got this tape down in the saddle. Helps keep everything flush. The idea is you want this elevon to be up butted real tight and flush. That's all there is to it. Simple. Thing I forgot to mention earlier, after we put the firewall on, there is a couple of about 1 inch, these are 80 thousandths dowels, about 5/64 or 2 millimeters. There's 2 outer holes right there, and these get glued inside there to help pin the firewall in place and add a little strength. What you probably do is take a small drill bit, this is a 2 millimeter, and just go in there and then run the holes in there deep enough for the dowels to go in there. Kind of test fit them, make sure they slide in and out okay, so you can get them in and get them out. Okay, and then what we're just simply going to do is just shove some CA down in that hole. Put it over there and hold it, just kind of force some in there. That works okay. And then we'll take the little dowel and we're just going to push it all the way down in there until it's flush. There you go, and then just do the other side. Okay, and that way the firewall is pinned into place. A couple of things we have to do. Need to put the control horns in. But get your radio mounted in. A lot of people have their own favorite ways of doing it. The way I've got this one set up here, these are actually a couple of servos I got from Aloft Hobbies. They're kind of nice. They're KS servos. They're HD. They're Metal Gear digital servos, little small micro servos. They're like $8-9 a piece. They're really nice. Got a SpeedX 25 amp quad speed controller going through a 5-volt regulator going to the receiver. And on the speed controller, what I do with these on all mine is I've rigged up a deal with a flight controller, OSD, and I've got beta 3.2 something flash to this flight controller. And what I use it for is that before I put the speed controller in, I hook the speed controller up to this, and put a LiPo in here, and you can power up the speed controller with this, and of course hook the speed controller into channel 1 there, and then of course hook it to the computer, and then dial into BL Healy, and go in and turn active braking on. So when you pull the throttle all the way back, the motor stops. That helps for gliding. It reduces drag. The other thing you want to do is turn the PWM, I think, all the way up to like 48. Make sure the timing is set on auto. Is a good place for it. That's a good thing to do on the speed controller before you rig it up. The motor I'm using on this one is a Brother Hobby 1407. We're going to be using a Pyro 700 milliamp. I think I got some 800 milliamps. Those Nanotechs as well, but they're 4 cells, a small 4-cell pack. I've got an old Mach 2 VTX that I broke the M6 connector off, so I just unsoldered it and directly soldered a extension to it. And so now what we need to do is just put the control horns in, and there's going to be a couple of just some of these big control horns in it, and you don't need the whole control horn. So what I've done is, here's what the control horn looks like that. So I've gone and I've snipped off the top of it, the top one, and just take a little bit of sandpaper, kind of round it off, make it look kind of nice. And what we're going to do is it's going to be glued in to the elevon. It's going to be shoved up to the bottom and glued in. To mark the location, just take you a triangle and go perpendicular to, if this is how you have your servos in. A lot of guys like to do this and get the linkage this way. I try to get mine as perpendicular as I can to get the direct throw to it. Either way works. My buddy Chuck, he does all his this way, but anyway you do it, just all you have to do is just set it up, draw a line, and then just simply cut a slot. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this control horn and we're going to use goop, and we're just going to glue it. I'm going to cut out a little bit of the covering right there, and we're just going to glue it into place. And what you want is to try to get the holes lined up right on the hinge line. It's not that big of a deal, but that's actually the preferred way to do it. And then we're going to glue that in. And then after that, we're just going to do the final setup. On the control throws, you're not going to need very much at all. Probably about 15-20 degrees up at the most. This thing is it's fast, and it's going to be very responsive to control input. So if you put too much, it's probably going to be a little bit squirrely on your maiden flight. Just keep that in mind. As far as balancing goes, the balance is 4.6 to 4.9 inches back from the nose. Okay, so I set the balance point is right just forward of the main spar. On most all the stingers, not most all the stingers, the spar is located on the rearward part of the CG range. So you know where, try not to go past that. Well, you can on a flying wing, but just be ready for a real pitchy airplane. But this is balanced. We set a mark at 4 3/4. Good place to start. On a flying wing, you don't need much static range either, which means the amount of distance forward of the neutral point that the CG is. On a flying wing, it's not as critical. In fact, you can use less than a conventional airplane. And one thing else you might want to do is take your wing tips, tape them on out here, put everything in it before you put the servos on, and then check the balance point and see if everything balances just about right. Don't forget you're going to be adding a couple of control rods back here in the back. Putting a little tape on the back here, you're taping these on, kind of simulates some of that. And it should balance just forward of it. If not, adjust the position of your servos to get the balance. In this case, this one worked out pretty good, because I like to get my servos as close to the control horns as possible. Just something to think about. Obviously, if you're going to use a 3S pack, which is perfectly acceptable, you're probably going to need to add a little more nose weight, or just use a bigger 3S pack, I guess. That's really all you'd have to do. This one's got a RunCam micro camera in the front of it. And that's about it. We're going to get this thing finished up and take this thing out and made it. This is actually the prototype one. There was another one I made, but I changed it, so I went ahead and rebuilt it to this here. This is the actual prototype of the one we're going to be test flying. Chuck's building one, so we'll get some test flights on these things here in the next couple days and see how they do. Keep it posted.